Jewish people whom I have hated all my life with passion to the point of going after them to kill them. I had a passion for killing a Jew. Thank God He's cleansed me from that.
It happened during prayer.
Suddenly I found myself praying for the Jewish people. They were on my heart to pray for before my own people. And I was just stunned. I heard myself praying, Lord, bless them, bless your chosen ones, and take them back to the promised land. I heard myself doing that, and I started wanting to shut my mouth with my hand because I realized what I was saying, but I couldn't because it's so bubbling inside of me.
Also inside him, a deep desire to unload the hatred he carried for Jews. Tas says Jesus taught him how.
On the cross, He was dying, and He said, Father, forgive them, for they do not know what they are doing. Now, that is the model for me. If He can forgive so much, I can forgive so little.
In 2001, Tas was invited to share his life story at an Arab-Jewish conference in LA. At the podium was Moran.
Pretty hard for me to accept it.
And he shared about his friends that were killed by a suicide bomber in the war. And after he finished, he went back to his friends.
And Tas is coming to me and is saying, hello, my name is Tassir Abu Saada. I said, nice to meet you. And in my heart, I was like, what do you want from me? And then he's looking at me straight in my eyes and he said, and I was a Fatah fighter. And when I heard the word Fatah, which is a PLO, the Palestinian Liberty Organization, I took a step back.
I said, but I want to tell you something. He said, yes. I said, I want you to know that I love you.
And I was like, right at that time, the leader of the meeting asked us to gather in groups of 4 or 5 and pray together. And here I am, finding myself shoulder to shoulder with an ex-Fatah fighter.
And we're praying for our heart to be reconciled. And we were praying in tears and weeping.
He asked me for forgiveness in the name of his people, for my friends who died. I asked him to forgive me for my anger and my hatefulness towards the Arabs and for not being able to trust Arabs and love Arabs. What God has done in that moment, He has lifted that burden away from my shoulders. And He gave me love. He gave me so much love.
Because I am
and gave him a brother.
That I'll be willing to give my life for the soul of a Jew. Okay? I'll say it with all of my heart. Because I know God's heart for those people. And if I want to be obedient to God, I got to do what God is saying to me to do.
Tas willing to die for me. And that's a love that is more than a brother. A man that is willing to sacrifice his own life for the sake of his brother means the world to me. I love Tas, I love his family, and I'm willing to do the same for him.
He's my brother. He's my little brother. He means everything to me. That's the peace of God. No one can bring that about between two enemies, fierce enemies, except God.
Lisa Mira, a single mother in Jerusalem, has fond memories of her son's early years. His name, Asaf.
Asaf was a very easygoing, very happy child, well integrated, could be very serious at times, but just normal, happy.
At 18, it was Asaf's turn to do his time in the Israeli army. 2 years later, he still hasn't found his way home. His mind is held captive by an act of violence, an event caught on tape.
During the middle of the day, he took a lift from a civilian who lived in Ramat and had just finished a job on the base. And they'd only driven a couple of 100 meters out of the base into a junction that's called the Ayosh Junction. Students that had been demonstrating it had come down to this junction, and they had already planned to wait for a soldier to come upon and to lynch him. A boulder came from the side of the driver. The driver managed to get out, and he didn't run away, he ran towards the base to try and get help. But Asaf was left trapped in the car. This first boulder had knocked Asaf unconscious. And when he did regain consciousness, which would have been very, very quickly, they then started physically to beat him. The doors were open, they were climbing inside from those sides, and they were beating his head, just beating him to pieces. He felt his weapon, his rifle, being torn off him. For a split second, the attention was off him, and he just started to run. He couldn't see even where he was running to. And he ran, and the army had managed to get there, and they rescued him out of all this. He had 2 broken knees. His ribs were broken. His head was just totally cut open, and his eyes were damaged. They've never been the same since.
And then, the final blow.
The army started to attack him, saying that he had brought shame upon the army because he hadn't killed Palestinians. He hadn't made a real show of force. The headlines in the papers would call him like the wimp of the army, because he hadn't at least wounded 20 of them. There was humiliation. He felt humiliated. He felt he'd been done in twice.
Abandoned by those he served, Asaf retreated to his bedroom for a year, becoming a recluse, physically scarred, emotionally tormented.
He's still in a trauma, and every time an incident happens, a bus bombing or a car bombing or anything, his instinct reaction is to go to sleep for 24 hours. He can't cope.
While Lisa tried to nurse Asaf back to health, she uncovered wounds of her own. Lisa, a Jew, had built her life around her belief in Yeshua, Jesus, and his teachings about love. But now her life was filled with something else.
I'm full of this bitterness and this wrath and this anger and this rage and this hate. And physically, it makes you ill. Bitterness just grows and grows and grows like cancer inside you. Inside, I was eaten up.
Lisa's spirit became a casualty of war, but she found a way to have peace again. She says Jesus came to her during prayer.
He just said to me, Lisa, is it so hard for you to forgive? And I said, yes, it's impossible. Is it so hard for you to forgive? I said, Lord, what do you want from me? Don't you know how hard it is? And he said, yes. I said, Father, forgive them. They know not what they do. When I was pouring out my lifeblood for your sins, for the sins of the world, when I took it all on me, I said, Father, forgive them. He said, I know what it is. I know what suffering is. I know what pain is. And at that moment, I said, Abba, please give me your ability. I desire, but I can't do it. It's too big for me. It's too enormous. Give me your ability. Give me your compassion to release these people. And something just broke in me, just broke. Just like you just break a dam and all these torrents of garbage that just block up our lives and our spirits, it just went. And then I thought, oh my goodness, supposing it's just words. Supposing it really isn't there. Supposing it just came out of my mouth. Supposing there's no connection between my mouth and my heart. That I was tested on.
The test came after police captured one of Asaf's key assailants. Asaf was asked to testify but was rendered too fragile to come to court. Lisa went instead. During a recess, Lisa looked around and found herself alone in the courtroom with 3 security guards and a man who tried to kill her son.
And really shaking, I went over to him and I said to him, Mr. Subri, I said, in the name of Yeshua, the Messiah, I said, I forgive him. I forgive you, Slicha, I forgive you. And I said, I can only do it because my sins have been forgiven me. He's forgiven me my sins. And in his name, I come to you and I forgive you your sins.
The verdict came in. Guilty. The man will spend 10 years behind bars. But he is the only prisoner. Lisa says she is free. Free from the bondage of hatred that is dividing the land. Asaf is making progress and Lisa is making arrangements to visit her son's assailant in jail to talk about peace.
Hatred is sin, and sin just is unacceptable to God.
So let's all welcome Moran.
Moran meets with Arabs often, which is what he'll do today at this gathering in Northern California. It's a mirror image of what Tas does, reaching out to Jews wherever, whenever he can. It's something Tas says he feels compelled to do.
Our people, the Arab people and the Jewish people, we are really longing. We long to be accepted. And when they see a Palestinian accepting them, or an Israeli accepting the Palestinian or the Arab, they find something in there. They find a chemistry that they never seen before.
Good morning. Good morning. Sabah al-Khir. Boker Tov. Buenos dias, and that's all I know.
Many here are former Muslims who have left Islam. In doing so, some suffered rejection from family and friends. Others fear reprisals, which is why we cannot show their faces. Moran is sensitive to their plight. Many Jews, like Arabs, risk much to follow Jesus.
If I'm going to tell my family that I believe in Yeshua, for many Jewish people, it's going to be like I'm betraying the Jewish faith because they don't know Yeshua is a true Yeshua, is true Jesus. Evil men took that name and did horrible things. If I had to risk my relationship with my family. And the most important thing for me was my relationship with my parents and my family. I love them. I love them a lot. But I love God more than I love anyone else.
It is a sentiment echoed by many today, people who have found peace and don't want to lose it.
I don't speak today to Arab people. I speak today to brothers and sisters in the Lord. I cannot deny what Yeshua has done and is still doing in my life. One body, one spirit, one God, one love.
I am born of 2 Arab parents, both Muslims.
Which is why Lena is in silhouette. While her parents still follow Islam, she does not. She hides her identity to protect her family.
It is a risk to forsake Islam. It is the ultimate sin. The culture has put such a fear upon us as females that if we deter from what we've been taught, that the entire family name will be shamed. And the burden of that is just enormous. Many of them have to stay in hiding. It is a difficult thing.
In the past, I could go to church. But now there are roadblocks and other such things that prevent my reaching the church. And so my friends and I do it all at my house. But we do it at a time when people do not walk by and might hear and see what we are doing.